Hi. The United Nations convenes a major global climate conference in Copenhagen next month with the hope of creating a united international policy to combat global warming. Global Green USA and Green Cross International will be presenting the global community with a solar report card. This report outlines the successes and the failures of 16 representative countries and the state of California in their efforts to design a policy for sustained solar development. The study finds all countries around the globe still in the early phases of substantial solar development. The report card will be a powerful and public call to action for world leaders to make solar a real and immediate solution to climate change around the globe. Pacific Gas and Electric Corporation's report card would read that they are delivering some of the nation's cleanest electric power, advocating for the regulation of greenhouse gases through strong national partnerships, investing aggressively in renewables, and creating highly successful energy-efficient programs. PG&E provides electricity and natural gas to approximately 40% of Californians. That's 1 in 20 Americans. And the bottom line report on their performance would read, PG&E is committed to environmental excellence. Their environmental commitment goes well beyond the mere compliance of existing regulations. PG&E strives to be the nation's leading utility working for the well-being and the vitality of their customers, employees, communities, and society at large. And now I'd like to ask one of the world's most foremost experts on climate change to assist me in presenting this award. He is a Melvin and Joan Lane Professor for Interdisciplinary, what is it? Listen, forget it. It's pretty impressive, whatever it is, trust me. And it has to do with the environment. So I'm sure you'll all be happy. And it's at Stanford, so you know he's very bright. He's a pretty handsome fella, too. He's a senior fellow at the Woods Institute for the Environment, a Global Green board member, and the author of a new book entitled I'm Gorgeous, So Should You. No, sorry. Science as a Contact Sport. Please welcome Stephen Schneider.
Thank you, Tate. You just destroyed my line that I'm completely bad at reading a script and that a good actor knows how to do it. This is designed to make Matt panic because he knows not one thing I've said is on the script yet. And he knows that when I get up here, it isn't always guaranteed that I'm going to read the script because I am really a lousy actor. In any case, tonight is a great pleasure because most of the people who have come before are among my young heroes. Now, in the old days, I used to be looking up to old heroes, but now I'm looking backwards at young heroes like the ones who've been getting these awards. And it actually is a hard act to follow. But what's really critical in the award we're about to present is that we've heard people who are leaders in the environment and exploring, and people who are leaders in looking at venture capital and business. But in this particular case, we're going to talk about mainstream corporate America that doesn't just sit there and follow a standard business model, but that aligns the business model with the sustainability needs of the planet. And that kind of message is one of the reasons I'm so proud to be up here to help award what's about to come. Now, I've always had a theory of leadership, and I used to call it the 3I theory, that really good leaders had integrity, intelligence, and imagination. And when my provost was the head of the National Security Agency, there was one eye, but we won't go into that. And when I think about Peter Darbee at PG&E, I decided the 3 I's are not enough. We have to add a C. We have to add courage to that. Because part of the problem is that when you operate in certain cultures, it's actually more difficult to step out of the mold than it is when those of us are in academics or in other walks of life. And in September of this year, PG&E, they actually stood up and acted decisively to back up its sustainability mission, while other businesses stood silently by. They were the first major corporation to leave the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. Some of you may not know, but the Chamber of Commerce announced it was going to have a Scopes monkey trials on the science of climate change. And these very venerable old characters from the 19th century who run it forgot to ask the membership and find out that the corporate world was way ahead of their Neanderthal values. And who was it who stood up first and stood up best? It was Peter Darbee of PG&E, and let me read a quote. "We find it dismaying that the Chamber neglects the indisputable fact that a decisive majority of experts have said that the data on global warming are compelling and point to a threat that cannot be ignored. An intellectually honest argument over the best policy response to the challenges of climate change is one thing. Disingenuous attempts to diminish or distort the reality of those challenges are quite another." When Peter pulled PG&E out, Steve Jobs pulled out Apple, and others have followed. And all of a sudden, the board was so shocked that it's actually starting to revise its views. So what we need to do is have our heroes come from all walks of life, because the only way we can solve these problems is through coalitions of people from different places that work together, driven by sustainability, caring about our children, grandchildren, and the rest of creation. However, not only is the integrity, honesty, and responsibility combined with this inventive and aggressive profitable practice making PG&E a true green leader among global corporations, but Peter, I got to warn you, there's a downside. I remember, with regard to your act of courage, that in 1997, John Brown, who was then the CEO of British Petroleum, came to Stanford, my university, and he announced that he was pulling his company out of the distortionist Global Climate Coalition, which is frankly a coalition of liars and spin doctors, to try to sit there and say, you know what, we're not going to go along with that model. That doesn't represent our business model. It doesn't represent our view of reality. What happened, Peter, as you may know, is that John Brown became an instant corporate rock star. So my question to you when you come up here is, how are your musical skills? You may need them. Finally, let me mention a personal story. Okay, I get the hint. When Peter was running PG&E, he had invited a number of people to come and address him and his board. And
for over a century, the men and women of...
I'll wait. Okay.
So you should just stick to the script, bro, because then, you know.
Yeah, I know. That'll teach you, Matt, to invite me to come up here. Okay, I'm almost done. The point that I was going to make is that Peter invited a number of people, including very prominent climate skeptics, and then he invited a number of us, including me, to come and meet with him and his board in an all-day session. It's one of these things where you could describe it as a frank and honest exchange. Nothing was left off the table. It was polite but aggressive, and we talked about it. But in the end, what I discovered was that PG&E, led by Peter Darbee, actually was driven by evidence, not by corporate mantras, and that their strong view that they needed to be part of the solution came about because they sought out how to find out where the reality was from all the posturing that was going on. So it couldn't be a bigger pleasure for me than to present the 2009 Corporate Design Award to Pacific Gas and Electric Corporation, and in particular, its CEO, Peter Darbee.